Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and continuing on with Oscar-winning Movie Week. Now we come to Best Animated Feature. Yes, lighthearted and such, anyways. So, yes, that's right. You read the title, and you know what the first Best Animated Feature film that I'm reviewing. Yes, and not to mention, this Best Winning Animated Feature film is celebrating its anniversary. And yeah, because, knowing Artman, and when they did their first ever feature film, Chicken Run, they wanted to have that win an Oscar and, most notably, win Best Picture. But they never got that nomination. But thankfully, it was thanks to Chicken Run and Artman themselves, where next year, the members of the Academy would create a new category, which that being Best Animated Feature. And sure enough, in 2005 and 6, Artman would win an Oscar for Best Animated Feature. And that being, and which is considered to be, the first veggie horror film, the debut of Artman's iconic duo, making their way on the big screen from 2005, this is Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Yes, Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Oh boy, yeah. I have some fond memories when watching Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. It was actually my very first introduction to the iconic claymation duo. Yeah. The first things I have to say about Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Well, like I just said, this was my introduction to Wallace and Gromit themselves. I had not seen nor knew about their, at the time, 3 short films, and not to mention, like, the commercials that they had, the cracking contraptions, those handful of shorts. They even had, 1 or 2 video games. They actually had a video game 2 years before the movie came out, something to do with the Central Park Zoo, if any of you know about that. So, my earliest memories of this movie, I remember seeing the, commercials and TV spots and such, I don't think my family and we saw this in theaters until when we got a copy of it on DVD, and, for me, I have no doubt that, because when I was young, I really enjoyed the film, yeah. And looking back at it and doing a bit of re-watch, and because I knew I would review this, yeah, it's still a great stop-motion animated masterpiece, without a doubt. One of Artman's top best films that they've done. And I would say Curse of the Were-Rabbit would be right there next to, all the other great stop-motion films from, say, Nightmare Before Christmas, The Corpse Bride, need I go on, and Coraline, can't forget to mention Coraline, that's another stop-motion masterpiece. And I would say, and I'm sure as though that, Curse of the Were-Rabbit is right there next to, say, The Wrong Trousers being Wallace and Gromit gems, right? It seems obvious, yeah. And after, seeing the film, and when I got to know more about these two characters, and that they had more materials, and when I saw their short films, and even when, say, their 4th short film that would come out a couple of years after Curse of the Were-Rabbit, it's a Matter of Loath and Death, yeah. And, of course, at a certain point, I became a fan of Wallace and Gromit, Artman, all together, yeah, and seeing all their other works, like, most notably, Shaun the Sheep, and, of course, Chicken Run, which, yeah, I've done my review on Chicken Run if you want to go check that out, yeah. And Chicken Run, that's another masterpiece from Artman, and again, that being their first stop-motion feature film, yeah. But, yeah, just overall, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, from beginning to end, with what the story hasn't stored, and with Wallace and Gromit, this being their movie, and with the other cast of characters that we get, and this was really the first time that this expanded, where we got to see more characters residing around West Wallaby Street. Yeah. Because, well, before this, like a close shave, we would get another human character, you know, so there's that. Anyways, not to mention, this is where, you know, Wallace and Gromit really expanded with more action and effects, you know what I mean? Because they were getting there, like, you know, from, say, wrong trousers, then, you know, a close shave, and then this, and, yeah, better than ever. But yeah, again, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, a stop-motion masterpiece without a doubt. Okay, so now, as always, for me, read the description / the story. The plucky characters from a series of animated shorts, Wallace and his dog, Gromit, make their feature debut here. After starting a pest control business, the duo soon lands a job from the alluring Lady Tottington to stop a giant rabbit from destroying the town's crops. Yeah. Both Wallace and the stuffy Victor, vie for the lady's affections. Yeah. If Wallace wants to please his pretty client, best Victor, he needs to capture that pesky bunny. And as for Victor Cormier, well, he basically just wants to shoot the crap out of it. Yeah, but Wallace and Gromit, they just want to simply capture it and save the annual giant vegetable competition that Tottington Hall hosts. Yeah, anyways. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get into some background. Yeah. Long story short, because, well, I already talked a little bit about, say, when, you know, they tried to win an Oscar, you know, when Chicken Run happened, but aside from that, well, I mean, for a long time, and even before Chicken Run happened, the guys at Artman, and most notably Nick Park, they wanted to do a feature film, and even when they got in touch with DreamWorks, and most notably Jeffrey Katzenberg, and at first, Katzenberg, when he was still working at Disney, he contacted the guys at Artman, but they weren't too comfortable with wanting to collaborate with Disney, because, you know, knowing what Disney is like and such, even, like, you know, back in the 90s, and they wanted to protect their identity, if you know that whole thing. And when Katzenberg moved on to DreamWorks, creating and forming it alongside with David Geffen and Steven Spielberg, that's when, and obviously, Katzenberg once again called them up, and sure enough, they were more comfortable working with DreamWorks. Yeah, because they can sense the fact with what DreamWorks is like, and, you know, DreamWorks at the time being a new thing. And not to mention, just about getting started doing animated feature films. And, yeah, because, you know, from, say, Ants and Prince of Egypt and, you know, the one with the horse, and, of course, you know, this. So, yeah, Chicken Run. At first, when trying to figure out what they should do, you know, for doing their first feature film, they at first thought of doing a movie with Wallace and Gromit, but Nick Park, he was not comfortable and ready to have his two creations be on the big screen for now. So that's when they came up with something new, which being Chicken Run. So Chicken Run happened. It came out, was a huge success, and as I said, they tried to get the film to be nominated for Best Picture. They didn't get it. Next year, the Academy would create a new nomination, which being Best Animated Feature, and from there on, yeah. And after Chicken Run, that's when Nick Park was now comfortable for his two characters to be on the big screen. And starting in 2000, and approved by Katzenberg DreamWorks, production began on Wallace and Gromit. Took them 5 years to make this movie. But hey, it was worth it, of course. And, you know, despite the fact that there were some a bit of, like, interference, I should say, yeah, with DreamWorks, like, wanting some changes to the story and something to do with the characters, yada, yada, yada. But I'm sure as though that, yeah, Artman, they pulled through and, you know, wanting to make the film that they wanted to do specifically. I mean, Chicken Run turned out great, so why was DreamWorks, who cares? Overall, it turned out great. And yeah, sure enough, when Curse of the Were-Rabbit came out, it was a huge success, another one for Artman and DreamWorks. The critics loved it, which is nice to see. Well, even after, not long after the release of Curse of the Were-Rabbit, I'm sure you guys know this, the infamous fire that occurred at Artman's original studio, everything was lost, you know, from the beginning of Artman, from, say, Morph and Creature Comforts, the first Wallace and Gromit short films, and even some of their awards. Ugh. But to Artman and Nick Park, it was no big deal. Just move on, and yeah. It's nice to see that they managed to pull through that. So, I mean, all that hard work and effort and those awards, I tell you. But at least not everything from the studio was lost, as I recall. But not only that, around the time after Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and even when Artman and DreamWorks' third feature film would come out, which being flushed away, as we all know, well, Artman and DreamWorks would cut corners and such, and they would go their separate ways. And not to mention that, as I remember, in the eyes of DreamWorks, on the subject of Curse of the Were-Rabbit, in the eyes of DreamWorks, it was a failure, but in the eyes of Artman, it was a huge success, which it was. But for DreamWorks, I guess probably had to do with something from the box office or something, I don't know. But especially, the biggie was when Flushed Away happened. DreamWorks lost a lot of money from that, you know, because of the box office performance, but yeah. But at least, you know, they did pretty well with the 3 films that they did, which I would call it, you know, the DreamWorks and Artman movie trilogy, you know, because it's obvious, yeah. They were going to do a 4th movie, which that being something to do with cavemen, and later on, that would become The Croods for DreamWorks, and later on, Artman would do a caveman film of their own, Early Man, so, yeah, anyways. But yeah, that's it on background, and all I have to say, so yeah. Okay, getting into the film itself, yeah. It's really cool how this movie opens. In fact, I think, yeah, it was Artman and Nick Park's idea for the opening logos of DreamWorks and Artman to have an epic music, you know, like, kind of like similar to, say, Star Wars, you know, if you know about that. And yeah, our opening credits, and just like in the, you know, first 3 Wallace and Gromit short films and so on, opening with, you know, a wall of pictures of Wallace and Gromit, and yeah, it's pretty cool and funny, you know, seeing a young Wallace and a baby Gromit. Gromit graduated from dog college, I want to say, and some pictures where Wallace goes after cheese, but Gromit is stopping him from eating that cheese, which of course he eats it, and yeah, it was pretty funny. And of course, yeah, the opening logo, and, well, very late in the evening, and one of the first characters that we see is PC Macintosh. That's literally his name, yeah, who's a policeman, being voiced by Peter Kay, and he would reprise the voice of that officer in the second Wallace and Gromit film. Nice to see. Well, some disturbance happening, and we see whatever it is making its way in the backyard of a house, you know, in a garden, and a gnome activates, lights flash, and then we cut to, you know, the house of Wallace and Gromit. These portraits of everybody that resides, you know, where Wallace and Gromit live, and yeah, Wallace and Gromit, this new business that they started, Antipesto, and, well, the contraptions that they made, and we see some contraptions activate, waking them up and summoning them to go on duty, and that great music that plays, I love it, you know, dun 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 dun, that, it's so good. Well, Wallace and Gromit awake, and sliding down, get on their anti-pesto uniforms, have a drink of coffee, cheers and such, and thus they get in their anti-pesto van, the hand contraptions starting up the car, and then it drives off, and, whatever it is that they're capturing, we are about to find out, and when they make their destination to the house, they have a sack ready, and those, claws, those contraptions, Gromit wrestling with it, and turns out to be a rabbit trying to go after a huge pumpkin, and, the pumpkin, belonging to, these people, which, being, Mr. and, Mrs. Mulch, yeah. Mr. Mulch being voiced by Dickon Ashworth, if I'm pronouncing that right, and Mrs. Mulch being voiced by Liz Smith. And let's not forget to mention the original voice of Wallace himself, the late legendary Peter Sellis. Yeah. And by the way, because fun fact, apparently DreamWorks at first wanted to replace Peter Sellis with a celebrity. Yeah, that was not acceptable from DreamWorks, and yeah, Artman, yeah, they were definitely not going to allow that. And, them keeping Salas, and to satisfy those at DreamWorks, bringing in other British talents that, yeah, even at that time, people started to know them. And, even at the time, a couple of American films that they were in, and even one of them being at that point quite a handful of Tim Burton films, until I mentioned them later. So yeah, Wallace and Gromit, they've captured a rabbit, and as Wallace describes the rabbit, the ultimate destroying machine. There's a moment where, Mr. Mulch had his wife's dentures, and, he put them in his mouth, and when the rabbit was wrestling, trying to get the giant prized pumpkin, Wallace wrestling with the rabbit, and Mrs. Mulch holding on to it, the pumpkin hit Mr. Mulch, and the teeth flew and hit the rabbit, and then we see the rabbit, as Wallace carries it off, he's got the teeth, and, oh, Rich, me teeth! And everybody who woke up to the noise and commotion with Gromit wrestling with the rabbit underneath the sack, we see them all applauding and thanking Auntie Pesto, and even, the vicar, the preacher, sorry, yeah, the preacher, being, the Reverend, yeah, the Reverend Clement Henge is being voiced by Nicholas Smith, bless you, Auntie Pesto, and yeah, and we see a banner, the giant vegetable competition. Whom has the biggest vegetable will win this, and again, being hosted at Toddington Hall, and it's in 4 days. We see that on the banner that it's in 4 days. And when we come back to Wallace and Gromit's house, we wonder, they capture rabbits, and especially since, now, with the giant vegetable competition happening, and capturing rabbits, what do they do with them? And a moment where we see Gromit, it seems like he's about to do something with a rabbit, like he has a knife, but no, because when it seems like, yeah, this is cold and so on, no. Cutting some carrots. And basically, they're keeping the rabbits in their house, and, they are treating them very kindly and like pets, and yeah, even when the rabbits get out of hand and they're in the kitchen at one point, but yeah. And just like starting in Wrong Trousers, Wallace pressing the buzzard, getting Gromit to pull the lever, he slides down, but he has a bit of a weight problem because of eating all that dang cheese. I don't blame him. Besides, I'm a cheese lover, so yeah. Anyways, I mainly like mac and cheese, but anyways. I do wonder, does Wallace like mac and cheese too? I don't see why not. It is cheese, but anyways. So yeah, and Gromit, a little bit in this movie, he's trying to get Wallace to go on a diet by serving him vegetables. And a moment where Wallace has Gromit go check on his prized giant vegetable, because Gromit, as well as entering in the competition, his giant vegetable is a giant marrow. You know what those are. Yeah, if you know your vegetables. Yeah, like, Gromit just in love with his giant marrow, attending it and so on. Even playing, we see later on, he plays a record music of vegetable love or I don't know, just eh. Anyways, and Wallace at one point, he tries to go for some cheese, but Gromit had done this earlier, setting like a mouse trap or something, and caught red-handed and such. And Wallace, even though he's crackers about cheese, he understands and he knows that Gromit is doing this for his own good. And that's when Wallace recommends to Gromit that maybe he should do it his way, because he had just built this contraption, which being called the Mind Manipulation-O-Matic. Yeah. Basically, it's used for the manipulation of human thoughts and desires no longer wanted by the user. So Wallace was at one point, was going to use this. It's attached to his head. He was going to pull the lever, and actually there's a deleted scene of this where he starts using it, and by saying, "Cheese bad, say no to cheddar," and so on. But that all is interrupted when they receive a phone call, and that being Lady Tottington of Tottington Hall, and Lady Tottington being voiced by good old Helena Bonham Carter. And that same year, she was in another stop-motion animated film where she voiced the titled character, the Corpse Bride. Not to mention, this and Corpse Bride were both nominated, and of course, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, it won. Well, still nice to see that Helena Bonham Carter was still in a stop-motion film that won for Best Animated Feature. Whichever one would have won, but yeah, ultimately Curse of Were-Rabbit, anyways. But yeah. And yeah, because like I said earlier, the guys at Artman wanting to keep Sallis, and to satisfy DreamWorks, they brought in other British talents that U.S. audiences would be familiar with. And yeah, Helena Bonham Carter being one of them, and the other being the voice of Victor Cormier, Ralph Fiennes, if I am pronouncing his last name right. Again, you know me sometimes. Best known for being Lord Voldemort, and coincidentally, Helena Bonham Carter, voice of Lady Tottington, Bellatrix. Yeah, so we got both Voldemort and Bellatrix in Wallace and Gromit, and before they played those characters in Harry Potter. Well, in that same year, when Curse of the Were-Rabbit came out, Ralph, not only voicing Victor, but also debuted as Voldemort in Goblet of Fire. Jeez. What a huge coincidence. One of those, especially when it comes to British actors and actresses, They've been in so much together, coincidentally, like, say, from Harry Potter, Doctor Who, but more than that, Anyways, so yeah. But before I talk more about Victor, because, yeah, he's coming up in just a moment, Tottington calling up Auntie Pesto to dispose something that's in her backyard and such, yeah, and Wallace telling her that Auntie Pesto is here, and he accidentally pressed a button, and the machine going up with him, he's still attached to it by his head, be there now. And she thought, Wallace said, "An hour? I simply can't wait an hour." Unfortunately, the phone got disconnected. And then, Tottington is paid a visit by Victor Cormier. Yeah, now enter Victor Cormier, gives her a bouquet of flowers and such, roses, I presume. "What ho for you, my love. Heard you had a spot of rabbit bother." And Victor, he knows about this, and he wants to take care of this himself. And he has feelings for Lady Tottington, and we find out, as the film proceeds, that he only wants to marry Lady Tottington for her money. But yeah, but sure enough, we do see Auntie Pesto arrive, and when they think it's just one rabbit, but it's a whole herd of rabbits. So what they do this time, in order to get all those rabbits, is use another contraption, straight from their Auntie Pesty vehicle. the Bunvac 6000, yeah. And basically, it's a contraption from their anti-pesto vehicle to suck up all of the rabbits, like straight from a hole, and where there's a bunch of rabbit holes, yeah. And right before that happened, Victor was about to shoot one of them, and golly, because even him saying, "It's off to bunny heaven for you," but he missed his shot right when it got sucked through the rabbit hole. And sure enough, we see all the rabbits being sucked in, the bun vac, and yeah. And even Victor, at one point, his toupee, he's wearing a toupee. It gets sucked into the bun vac, and so does he. How powerful it is, and well, Wallace and Gromit think that they caught something big, and thus, yeah. And also, Victor's dog, which being a pit bull or something, well, you know, Philip. Yeah, I just want to get that out of the way, because yeah, Victor's dog, Philip. And, you know, unlike Gromit, because Victor's dog, Philip, does have a mouth and dog teeth and such. And another dog that we would see in something else of Artman, where he would have a mouth, would of course be Bitzer from Shaun the Sheep. So yeah, Wallace being the only dog, if I'm correct, the only dog from Artman never to have a mouth. And you know what? That works. It works fine, you know, where he does not have a mouth. Yeah. And especially his eyes says it all. You know, what he's like, and it says it all about the character. His expressions through his eyes, he doesn't need a mouth. I mean, obviously, he would eat and drink, and even when we do see him drink coffee, just... anyways. So yeah, so again, Victor got accidentally sucked up in the bun vac, and sure enough, this is where Toddington and Wallace and Gromit first meet. They meet face-to-face and such, and Toddington fascinated by what they'd done and finds it very satisfying. And unlike Victor, where he just wants to murder bunnies. And by the way, originally, Victor was going to be Lady Toddington's son. And his name would have been Tristram. I swear I'm not making that up. I mean, is there anybody that goes by the name Tristram? Seriously, I don't know. But it's a good thing they changed it, and yeah. Victor's like, say, I guess you could say like a Gaston wannabe. Pretty much. And also, just like say how, what's-him-face from Corpse Bride, that Richard E. Grant voices, that too. Yeah, one of, like, those kind of characters. But anyways, so yeah. And when Victor is, you know, unsucked by the bun vac, and yeah, he's covered in mud and such, well, he finds this ridiculous and, you know, and now has a, you know, has a bone to pick with Anti-Pesto. And even, like, he requests that his toupee be returned to him, but Wallace doesn't understand this and thinks that he's talking about rabbits, hair. Rabbits can also be referred to as hair, so, yeah. You know, just like the tortoise and the hare, that whole thing. And, well, Victor, he takes it upon himself to search and get his toupee. He thinks he's got it, but no, it's a black bunny. And thus he walks off, and, oh gosh, you wonder what happened to that poor black bunny. I don't know, just probably shoot it off, I don't know. But anyways, that's left for us to figure that out, but yeah. And, yeah, and so far, the interactions between Wallace and Lady Toddington go well, and even Wallace trying to flirt with her a bit. And, well, there's something that comes up, most notably from Lady Toddington, that, you know, if there would be a way, not only have they found a way to capture bunnies, but what if, like, say, there could be a way for bunnies not to eat vegetables and so on, you know, what she says, and same with Wallace. And that's when he gets an idea that, you know, there can be a way. And using that machine that Wallace built, the mind manipulation-o-matic, that's the answer. Like, that could work for the bunnies not to eat vegetables and so on. And thus, later that evening and down the basement, they use that contraption, and Wallace, you know, saying, and for the bunnies, "Veg bad, say no to cabbages, cauliflower," and Gromit. I love it at times when Gromit's just like, Because, like, yeah, we can understand Gromit, so yeah. And Gromit definitely being the more smart one than Wallace. And I'd say that Wallace, he would have his smart moments, right? Come on, they're there at times, just, anyways. And he knows, like, some certain situations, and of course, when it comes down in this movie with getting the bunnies and so on. So, yeah. And he's very caring, of course, to Gromit. So yeah, not mean, okay? Just, But yeah, most of the time, Wallace, not that fully smart. But anyways, I mean, it's clever what he does right here, using the mind manipulation-o-matic, having the bunnies not fall in love and wanting to go for vegetables. And it goes well at first, and these waves of, rings and such, going through the bunnies, and, well, to Wallace, it is working, and, Wallace, letting this go for 30 minutes, raising his foot up, he was going to read a newspaper, but he accidentally changed the switch to blow, and, well, the bunny's getting sucked, and one of them makes their way straight down to Wallace's head, and it goes mad. Everything goes mad, and Gromit panics, so does Wallace. Get this off of me, and such. And Gromit taking upon himself with a wrench, and breaking the glass dome of the mind manipulation-o-matic, and with all those ring waves flying, and, well, the one brown rabbit that landed on Wallace's head, they tested out by taking a carrot, having the bunny sniff it, and it worked. It did work, yeah. So again, Wallace knew what he was doing. Like I said, Wallace can have his smart moments at times, that being one of them, but little did he know what would happen next, but yeah. And Wallace, he names the bunny Hutch, and yeah, Hutch, placing him in his own bunny cage, and, well, we see Hutch, just like, he's twitching and shaking, just, yeah. And so, later that evening, and after Wallace set up a new portrait in the living room, which being Lady Toddington, and with the eyes, and yeah, if something happens, then the lights flash, like we see early at the start of the movie, and yeah. And Gromit saying goodnight to his giant Marrow, sorry. And we see all the other neighbors saying goodnight to their giant vegetables. And yeah, all is settled for the night, or so for now. And we then see the Reverend praying that the giant vegetables be watched and such, locking up the room that's keeping the giant vegetables, the anti-pesto equipment, and locking it up like a car. And the Reverend, hearing some commotion, doesn't make anything of it, no big deal, heading back into the church, and this table, front center of the church, all this vegetables and such, and, well, someone came into the church right behind the Reverend, and he thought that Mrs. Mulch, I think that's who he was referring to, and you're hungry. Please take what you like, and we don't see it at first, like what it is, because, well, when it gets up to the Reverend, he panics, and he tried to go for the cross, mercy, but he went for, I think, cucumbers, and cucumbers, pickles, whichever which, and they were eaten, and we get a little glimpse, and it's something big. It's a big rabbit. We don't see it fully, because it goes by quick and such, and breaking through the anti-pesto equipment, eating all the vegetables and such, and causing a lot of commotion. And when Gromit wakes up, well, noticing downstairs that the fridge was open, and all of the portraits are lit up, and Wallace wakes up, and, well, it's on the newspaper, and Gromit showing this to Wallace, and, and they find themselves at the church with everyone else, them making complaints and getting down to the bottom of this, and, once again, Officer PC, Macintosh is there, and, because, again, then making complaints and, trying to figure out what happened last night. Even, complaining to Antipesto on their contraptions not really working, because, they got destroyed, and, it just didn't go so well. And, they're wondering exactly what it is, and sure enough, the Reverend steps in. He was in a wheelchair, but he got up, and the dialogue that he has, and then when he tells them, that the doing of what happened, all of this was done by the were-rabbit, and we see the shape of the were-rabbit, that broke through the glass, the church, and everybody starts to panic, and sure enough, pew! Victor Quartermainer, he shoots a bullet to get everyone's attention, and I think, he finds this, a bunch of mumbo-jumbo and such, but he's, of course, wanting to take it upon himself to whatever this is, and to take care of it himself. But that's when Lady Tottington, her at the church, and she sets Victor straight about this, and even, wanting to give Antipesto another shot/chance on getting whatever this is, and if it presumably is the were-rabbit that the Reverend speaks of. And I like how, because it's so obvious. When we first see Tottington at the church, she's right behind, where these angel wings are. And then Victor, his hair, these, pointy things that look like devil horns. That's so funny and brilliant. And when the attention is turned to Antipesto, Tottington asking Wallace what they should do, and to get this giant beast, and Wallace, even when he looks at Gromit, and what Gromit says through his eyes, to Wallace, and what Wallace says, the total opposite of what Gromit was hoping he would say. Wallace saying, "With a bigger trap," and Gromit just, and then one of the characters, the one with the pipe, saying, "By Jove, He's got it," and it's a good idea from Wallace that they go for a bigger trap. And surely, because a bigger trap would get the attention and it would manage to capture this giant beast. And and to name some of the other characters, the other background characters and such, because I already mentioned Mr. and Mrs. Mulch. Well, there's also, I already mentioned Macintosh. His first name, Albert Macintosh. And did I forget to mention that when he takes off his police hat, his hat is pointy, and it's almost like a breadstick or something. There's also Mr. Growbag. I never saw cauliflower, however he says. Just, it's funny. There's also Mrs. Thrip, I think, And, the full, Reverend Clement Hedges, his full name. There's also Mr. Leachin, and the voice actors, and to name the characters, Mr. Growbag being voiced by Edward Kelsey, Mrs. Thrip being voiced by Gerland McGwen, if I'm pronouncing that right at all, the full name. Again, you know me sometimes. There's also, Mr. Leaching, Ben Whitehead, Mrs. Blight being voiced by Mark Gaddis. One of those where a guy voices an old lady or something. I love that. Mrs. Mulch being voiced by Liz Smith. I think I already mentioned that if I did or did not. Dickon I already did. Mr. Windfall being voiced by John Thomas. Mrs. Girdling being voiced by Nani Lewis. Mr. Dibber being voiced by Robert Horvath. Mr. Clatchy, if I'm pronouncing that right, being voiced by Vincent Abraham, if I'm getting that right. Which, by the way, that character, that would be another one of those characters that we would see in the second Wallace and Gromit film, right next to the officer, but anyways. And there's also Mr. Croc being voiced by Pete Atkin, and he was the one that said, "By Jove, he's right." That character with a pipe. They like this, and thus Antipesto's given another shot at this, and taking it upon themselves to capture the beast. But Victor, of course, he's angered by this and just, jealous over Antipesto and such. And Wallace, like, to Toddington. And yeah, Toddington doing that back and even giving a photo to Auntie Pesto. Good luck, and there's an X. Wallace is in love, yeah. And what they're doing with a big trap is a giant, lovely lady rabbit. Gromit is puppeteering it, and just, yeah. I love the music that plays, and even Mr. Mulch, when he sees this as it passes by, he kind of like, oh, and then he takes a drink from a watering can. He's had too much of, like, smoking, just, yeah, what he was doing. And Wallace having Gromit, do more with this and just, like, doing a sexy dance, and it's funny. And Wallace wasn't seeing where he was going. They're making their way into a tunnel while Gromit just, and so does the giant lady rabbit puppet, and, and going through the tunnel, the strings break off and causing Gromit to, hit the top of the van, yeah. And Wallace stepping out, stick around, lad, should fix back up in a jiffy. He was gonna retrieve the giant lady rabbit dummy and such. And Gromit going up front, and, well, we don't see Wallace just yet, and there's one shot where we see the full moon come out, and, Gromit at one point starts to knit, turn on the radio, but commotion happens outside. Wallace is still nowhere to be seen, and even when he honks the horn, nothing. And even when Gromit gets back in, we see a shadow reflection, and yeah. And once again, more commotion happens, like a giant carrot, for a store hit the van and so on, and something ran. Gromit once again honking the horn, I should say. Wallace still hasn't come back. Where is he? And, even I listened to a little bit of the commentary, and yeah, because, there are those that I'm sure when they watch the movie for the first time that, wondering possibly that maybe Wallace is this giant were-rabbit that they're going after. Maybe it is. Or maybe it's the brown bunny that Wallace named Hutch. Which is it? Well, we don't know quite yet. Because, yeah, there's not that much detail to this, and yeah. But anyways, so Gromit, because Wallace hasn't come back, he takes it upon himself driving the van and capturing the beast himself. And yeah, using rope, and managed to catch it with the rope, but the van being pulled by the rope, and, well, the rabbit dug a big hole, and thus the van goes down the hole. And this was really cool, because there were a bit of CG used in Curse of the Were-Rabbit, obviously for understanding reasons, because, yeah, like, when the van goes underneath that giant rabbit hole that the were-rabbit made, piles of dirt, flying and such, yeah, obviously, most of that was CG, yeah, so, I mean, it's going by fast, I mean, yeah, understandable. And we can see from, up beneath the surface that the rabbit is, like, sucking down the vegetables and such from everyone's homes, and, yeah, more chaos, and make a bad image for poor Auntie Pesto. And, yeah, sure enough, the were-rabbit got unroped and such, yeah. It broke off, and thus, yeah, the were-rabbit escapes. Gromit, he hits the wheel of the van, and an airbag shoots out. And when he finally makes his way back to the house, it's morning, and yeah. And even the van activated itself to clean it off because of the mud, shaking, and just, yeah. And Wallace can see that, well, the were-rabbit made its way into their house, and seeing footprints and what was taken from the fridge. And when he comes face to face with Wallace, he's taking a bunch of phone calls, and finally he pulls the plug, and yeah. And Wallace is very disappointed in Gromit that, Gromit left him behind, but he was nowhere to be seen. He never came back to the van. That's technically on Wallace, not Gromit, really. And Gromit noticing more footsteps, and they lead down to the basement, presumably. And thus, going down to the basement, Gromit first discovers, and then Wallace discovering too, that, maybe it's the bunny Hutch, because something different with Hutch. He looks very different. He's grown quite a little. And even his face looks different. Not to mention, very earlier, there was a moment where all the other bunnies were shaking and panicking because the bunny cage was shaking and such. Maybe it was Hutch. It could be, and even Wallace thinks so too. And Wallace, thinking that it's Hutch, and thinking that they have captured the beast, that it's Hutch. And when the moon comes out, he grows humongous and is the were-rabbit. So Wallace, he takes it upon himself to get ready and to inform Lady Tottington that the beast has been captured, leaving poor Gromit to build a more powerful, big cage to hold Hutch. And that's what he does. A little montage of him building it, and sure enough, he got it done. And when he got done, making his way back upstairs, closing the door, he noticed more footprints, this time leading upstairs. They weren't specifically from the basement. The footsteps did not continue down to the basement. They continued on upstairs. And what Gromit discovers upstairs? Well, when he enters Wallace's room, a pile of vegetables on his bed, and that's when Gromit realizes, in us audience, that, yeah, Wallace is the beast. So then, and to speed things up, well, Wallace, he makes his way to Lady Tottington's house, Tottington Hall, to inform her about the beast being captured and so on, and, Gromit, taking the anti-pesto van, I mean, Wallace, I guess he must just decided to take a walk, that's all. Or maybe he hopped his way, because we start to see him act like a bunny. Yeah, doing a bit of hopping, scratching himself, and yeah, the conversations that Wallace and Tottington have, and again, Wallace giving her the great news that the beast has been captured and such, and when Tottington invites Wallace to see her private garden and such upstairs, yeah, taking a special elevator, and thus Tottington's garden, and yeah, with a bunch of vegetables, it's amazing and beautiful to Wallace, yeah. And Gromit, he's made his way, sneaking through Tottington Hall, making his way upstairs on top of the roof, and, not to mention, Victa showed up, and remember when we first saw him, he had that bouquet of flowers? Well, he took that from part of Tottington's garden. We see him do that, once again, using scissors and just, golly. And he noticed that, yeah, Auntie Pesto is here, and hearing Toddy and Wallace laugh, and yeah, very jealous, and so on. And just tossing the bouquet of flowers, and Philip finishes it off, just stomping on them. And yeah, even at one point, Tottington told Wallace that he can call her Totty. And there's one moment where Tottington shows Wallace a giant carrot. Wallace is just, gaga over it, and Gromit has to do something about this, and not to mention, because he's trying to retrieve Wallace and to get him back at the house, because very soon, the sun will set, and the moon will rise, and Wallace, almost about to bite on the carrot, and Gromit, he uses, something straight from the garden, picking something, and throwing it to hit, the fountain and such, the sprinklers, yeah. And that's what happens. The sprinklers go off, and both Toddy and Wallace, they scream as they're getting wet, and Wallace being taken back home, and once again, a bit of CGI used, where, yeah, as Wallace is, rinsing off his, fabric shirt and such, knit fashion, as he says, what on earth were you thinking of, lad? Ruin a perfect fashionable knitwear, and so on. The water that was CG. It looked pretty good. I mean, it fits so well in Wallace and Gromit and with the stop motion. And Gromit just speeding down the line and trying to get through the woods, just trying to get back home. But at one point, there's a tree in the way, and it had just been cut. Why? Because, well, we then happen to see, and when Wallace steps out of the van to take care of it himself, trying to push it and so on, having no luck, of course, well, this was done by Victa. He confronts Wallace, and he's not happy about Wallace being with Lady Tottington and such, and just, I'm not gonna let some, pesto, and company, just, yeah. And, Wallace, he was going to leave, but, Victor telling him, "You're not going anywhere." The straps to his pants were caught to the axe, and, yeah, basically, Victor is going to fight him, teach him a lesson, and Gromit is trapped in the van by Philip, and, yeah, come on, and Wallace, he puts up his fists, but he starts to shake, and, there's no mercy for Victor Cordemeyer, and Gromit, he knew what was going to happen. He locked the doors. The moon was emerging, and sure enough, after what Victor just said, as I just quoted, about to punch Wallace, Wallace stopped him, and he lifted and tossed Victor on top of the anti-pesto van. And what happens next is a memorable moment, I should say. One of the, if not top memorable moments from the movie, right? Wallace's transformation into the beast himself. The were-rabbit. Yeah, seeing that transformation, and, well, Victor, not only is Gromit witnessing this, and he knows by now, Victor and Philip are also witnessing this too, and who can blame all three of them being shocked by the sight of this, because, yeah, this is for real in the movie, and, Victor, what the dickens? And even when at one point he turns to Gromit, he's just like, no ideas, yeah, and thus, the transformation, great music, and the chorus, just, yeah. And when the underpants of Wallace hits Victor's face, then we see the were-rabbit itself, yep, on screen, roaring, and the were-rabbit took care of the tree, yeah, tossing it, and let out a ooh, and even the rabbits, they heard this, and they did the same thing too. The were-rabbit stomping its foot, and smelling food. And, the were-rabbit at times could seem scary, but at the same time, he can be very cute and fluffy and such, pulling off a cute, happy face and such. Also, the fact that the were-rabbit puppet in Curse of the Were-Rabbit has, fur to it, and yeah, fur can be very tricky when it comes to stop motion. But the way they achieved it, well, and what they were going for with the were-rabbit and its fur, to pay tribute and homage to the great stop-motion animation of Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen. If you know, you know, and that's nice to see, and yeah. Not to mention, another fun fact, Ray Harryhausen himself actually paid a visit to the set of Curse of the Were-Rabbit, yeah, at Artman Studios. I would think that he was probably very impressed with what they were doing, and found everything Wallace and Gromit and what Artman does, their stop-motion animation, really good. And, and I'm sure as though that for Peter Sellers, him being very delighted that stop-motion, of course, still living and going, even after he retired from the industry of stop-motion animation. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, the were-rabbit leaves, hops off, and, well, Victor, he now knows that Wallace is the beast, and this gives him the perfect opportunity not only to dispose of the creature, but also Wallace in general. Yeah, because, him having a grudge towards Wallace, and especially towards Lady Tottington, yeah, and the lightning strikes and that evil face that Victor makes, but Gromit steps on the gas, and yeah. And Victor, we then see him pay a visit to the Reverend about, wanting to talk to him about the beast, and the Reverend just so happens to have a book about this, everything you need to know is in this book. Victor confused when he sees on the table, non-wrestling. What? Why does the Reverend read that? I don't know. But yeah, the book that he gets is a book about mythical creatures, cryptids, and stuff like that. One of them is a were-cow. Okay? But, of course, the page that he gets to is about the were-rabbit, and the Reverend giving Victor the information and such about the were-rabbit, and it would require skill, strength, and such, and a bullet. Boom, lightning flashes, a bullet, flash of lightning and such, yeah. And not just any ordinary bullet, gold bullets. they are the specific bullets in order to take down the beast. And thus Victor, he takes the gold bullets, and thus he's going to take it upon himself, of course, to go get the beast. And not only that, but kill Wallace. Like, killing a human being, basically. Yeah. And after that, well, we come back to Wallace and Gromit's house, and this time, yeah, Gromit waiting for Wallace to wake up. He's summoned down, and when we first see Wallace, and after he gets his iconic wardrobe on, what he wears, he has bunny ears. Yeah. And Wallace doesn't even notice this. And Wallace, well, he does eat a vegetable. He eats a carrot. And Wallace, noticing Gromit is staring at him, not ordinarily, and Wallace asking Gromit, so what's up, dog? And Gromit shows Wallace with a mirror that, he has bunny ears. But Wallace thinks it's probably because of the diet and him eating vegetables, but no, not really, Wallace. And Gromit pointing out to Wallace that, and with a newspaper, a picture of the face of the were-rabbit. How did that make its way to the newspaper? I don't know. Maybe I'd take a guess that somewhere and down the road, after they escaped and, when, after what Victor saw and such, maybe someone happened to have noticed the were-rabbit and at a perfect angle and timing took a snap of the were-rabbit's face, I presume. But yeah, anyways, so again, Gromit pointing out to Wallace that he is the beast, but Wallace thinks, it's rubbish and such. And then they head down to the basement, and, well, Gromit opening the big cage of Hutch. And, well, the first thing that they hear, is cheese, and there's like a bit of shaking, and I just love that. And Wallace, Gromit, I just love that. And yeah, we hear a voice saying cheese, and yep, Gromit, he whips out a piece of cheese, and these dramatic footsteps, and well, we see the feet, then the camera pans up, we see Hutch. And Hutch, when he eats the slice of cheese, then, him saying, "Oh, I do love a bit of gorgonzola," what he says. Hutch basically being a rabbit version of Wallace. And Peter Sellis voicing Hutch. His voice being pitched up and such. Yeah. And then, at Toddington Hall, everything's getting set up. Today's the day, and later that evening, that the annual giant vegetable competition happens. Everything's being set up and such, from the interactive games, like, the shooting game, inflatables, and stuff like that. But everybody, when they show up, they are still upset, and the fact that, well, what happened last night, the were-rabbit once again being loose, yeah, Auntie Pesto did not make any progress, and this upsets poor Toddington, Totty, and such. And, well, at one point, they don't want the annual giant vegetable competition to happen. But, Toddington doesn't want this to happen because, according to her, the giant vegetable competition, it had been hosted by the Toddington Hall for 5 centuries, yeah. Always happening on the 17th of September. So, yeah. Well, sure enough, Victor once again steps in, and he wants to, handle this himself, shoot the beast, finally. And when we come back to Wallace and Gromit and Hutch, still down in the basement, Wallace is trying to figure out how to fix the mind manipulation-o-matic, try to fix it, but he's too distracted, and his mind makes him think that he, it's vegetables and such, like one piece of equipment that looks like a carrot, and, he finds it hopeless, as he says, and he starts to break down and cry, "Oh, Gromit, I don't want to be a giant rabbit." He uses his rabbit ears to blow his nose. Ugh. And Hutch, feeling bad for Wallace, saying, "Oh, the bounce is gone from his bungee." And then when Gromit, he comforts Wallace, Hutch, he actually, surprisingly, starts to fix the machine himself. And, well, Wallace himself, he can't do it, but Hutch, his other self can. And yeah, Hutch is making good progress. But that's interrupted when the doorbell rings. Hutch goes upstairs, "Charming, I'm Wallace." And Wallace himself, he can't answer the door because of the rabbit ears. And, well, Hutch answering the door, "Geronimo!" Wallace and Gromit quickly grabbing him and, "Hold on a mo." And, yeah, Wallace, puts on, like, a winter cap or something, to cover the ears. And, well, Toddy, and this time she asks Wallace to refer to her as Lady Toddington. And she basically comes to inform them that, well, they've disappointed her, even though unintentionally and such. And leaving her no choice but for Victor to shoot and put the creature out of his misery. Little does she know that the beast is Wallace. And then, out of nowhere, the moon starts to emerge, and, well, the transformation is slowly but surely beginning. He's trying to close the door, but Toddy's not finished with what she said, and sure enough, yeah, closes the door, and one moment where he goes up to the window and a raspberry, and this upsets her. Not to mention, Toddy was starting to develop feelings for Wallace. And Victor, he's right there, waiting for Toddy to leave, and because Victor's saying, "That's right, my dear, you can say goodbye to your fluffy lover bunny," and so on. Snaps his fingers, having Philip hand him his gun, and thus he slowly is walking his way to the house. And, well, Wallace, the transformation's still beginning. Now he's aware. He's aware of this, and because he wasn't at first, but now he is. And, yeah. Gromit is unfortunately not able to get Wallace out of the house on time. He's now fully the were-rabbit, going for some food in the refrigerator. Hutch, he makes his way upstairs to bed. Good night, Gromit. And the only way to get the were-rabbit out of the house, well, Gromit, he uses the Lady Rabbit puppet to distract the were-rabbit, to lure it outside, and the were-rabbit, finding the Lady Rabbit attractive and such, even, like, pinching the tail, and it's... And then, yeah, in order to really get out of there, because Victor, he makes his way into the house, breaking the door down, well, using that, like, orange bouncy thing, and thus Gromit in the Lady Rabbit suit is hopping, so is the were-rabbit. Victor making his way outside of the backyard, he sees the were-rabbit supposedly, presumably I should say, shoots it, and, well, it seems like maybe the were-rabbit was shot. The echo of the gunshot can be heard, and those at Toddington Hall, they hear the echo, and, what's-him-face, yeah, Mr. Growbag, he says, "'Tis done," and Toddy, she gets emotional, and the Reverend, having everyone, let us, give our condolences, for the passing of the beast and such, a moment of silence just for a few seconds, and then the Reverend just going, "Yay!" A celebration. Now the annual giant vegetable competition can begin. And when we come back to see the aftermath of the gunfire, well, Victor had not shot the beast, instead shot the top of the head of the Lady Rabbit costume, Gromit, being exposed. And, well, when Victor sees that the were-rabbit is loose, well, he and Philip, they lock poor Gromit up in an anti-pesto cage. So yeah, Gromit can't come to intervene, to save Wallace, and it's quite emotional, yeah, for poor Gromit. And at the celebration, yeah, because from the arcade shooting, and even they shoot the prized bunny, stuffed bunny, and sure enough, well, when Victor shows up, everyone's praising him, for shooting the beast. Victor secretly telling the policeman, which being, who was his name again? He's right here, but, okay, anyway, so yeah, the policeman, it's right at the tip of my tongue, Macintosh, sorry, the name almost slipped out of my head. he secretly tells Macintosh that, the beast is not dead yet. And he has the bullhorn, and stupidly, he speaks through the bullhorn, the beast isn't actually dead yet, and now they heard it, and everybody's frozen when they hear this. Even, like, the, rides, like the merry-go-round and so on, the music stops, everything stops. This is, like, the only time where we see the stop-motion characters not moving. Probably the easiest shot for them to do, right? All that we see in one of those shots is like cotton candy floating by like a tumbleweed. And Victor and then slowly, like, behind Victor, Macintosh, with the bullhorn, oops, and everybody panics, and yeah, they're once again doomed, and the competition, and their vegetables. Coming back to Gromit, what he does next, well, finding a way to get Hutch's attention by, well, setting off an alarm, and thus Hutch, in Wallace's bed, being taken down where the van is, and yeah, Hutch knowing how to drive, and, well, he backed the car, and managed to break the cage that Gromit's in, and thus, yeah, and Gromit, he takes his Morrow, his prized giant Morrow, to get the were-rabbit's attention, and again, panic erupting, Victor getting everyone to be quiet. He shoots off the second golden bullet, and, telling them, I've only got one gold bullet left, so leave this to me. Yes, I know the beast is still at large. And then, out of nowhere, Mrs. Mulch, she starts to run off with her prized pumpkin. He's not getting my baby. And sure enough, we see from underneath the grass, the were-rabbit is coming, and... But sure enough, and when Victor is this close to shooting the beast, well, he missed his shot. And in fact, he didn't get to shoot the last golden bullet, because Antipesto emerges, and and Toddy is happy, hooray for Antipesto. But then one of the people, which being Mrs. Thrip, she takes Victor's gun, it's getting away, and she shoots the gun, but misses it, and now Victor has no more gold bullets, even when he asks the Reverend for more gold bullets, and he's like, they don't come cheap, And then Victor notices the prized gold carrot. Again, whoever wins the competition for the biggest vegetable wins the prize gold carrot. So, Victor, not clearly thinking straight, but maybe possibly, he takes a giant gun, putting in the gunpowder and such, then going for the gold carrot, Toddy stops him. I need it, my dear. Emergency. No, Victor. This gets the attention of the were-rabbit because he was chasing after Gromit's prized marrow. He hears Toddy's voice, turns, sees the commotion, a close-up shot of an angry were-rabbit. And then he approaches up to them, hits him on the head, Victor, like, ruining his toupee completely. And, he basically saves Toddy, and we hear a bit of a Wilhelm scream when he knocks over one of them, and everybody at the competition, they get their mop supplies, because there's one moment where a supply of, like, gardening tools or something, changing the label to angry mop supplies. Get your angry mop supplies. I remember my mom finding that joke funny. So even Mrs. Mulch has a freaking chainsaw. Jeez Louise. They're out of hand. And little do they know that it's Wallace, but yeah. There's one moment where Hutch, he crashes the Antipesto van in a tent where there's cheese, and this causes poor Gromit's giant marrow to be squashed, literally. And a sad moment for Gromit, but still, he recuperates from that quickly, I assume. And him trying to get to Wallace, but Philip stepping in, confronting Gromit. Dog versus dog, that's cool. Victor trying to get to the were-rabbit, but he unplugs like a hose or something, causing Victor to fall down into a cotton candy making machine. He spins, and the were-rabbit lets another ooh, and it's a King Kong moment, basically, where he has Toddy in his clutch. Yeah, did I forget to mention that Toddy's wardrobe at times could resemble vegetables, and this one that she wears during the competition, and when the were-rabbit has him in his clutches, has her in his clutches, she's dressed as a carrot, pretty much. And Gromit, well, he snuck away from Philip when he was distracted by the were-rabbit howling. Even the bunnies, they had something in their clutches too, a carrot, and oh, and Gromit still trying to make his way to Wallace, the were-rabbit, and Philip still behind him and on his tail, just stopping him. And Victor, well, when he goes to confront Toddy and the were-rabbit especially, well, at that point, Toddy discovers that it is Wallace. That he's the Beast, and the were-rabbit shows Toddy and proves to Toddy that it's him by going, yeah, and by that point, the were-rabbit, Wallace has full knowledge that he is the were-rabbit and he knows what's going on, even though he's in the form of the were-rabbit. So, Victor showing up and Toddy trying to tell Victor that, it's all a misunderstanding. But Victor, he accidentally lets it out by mentioning antipesto and ooh. And did you hear that? Just like in the movie. That's cool. So Toddy discovers that Victor knows it's Wallace and he's going to commit murder. Pretty much. But Victor, he doesn't care. Oh, right, so if it is that bumbling antipesto idiot, no one will believe you, and if I can't have your money, I could still stuff your bunny, how he says it. Toddy intervening, nice on her, she pepper sprays him. Did I forget to mention, because he fell into that cotton candy making machine and he was spinning, now he has cotton candy hair. Funny. And Victor, he takes care of Toddy by putting a rake and such through her hair by a melon or something. I rather quite like your hair like that, how he says it. And coming back to Gromit, because he was still being interfered by Philip was still confronting and stopping Gromit. Gromit got on a plane, because basically a state fair plane ride, for little kids. So that whole thing. Gromit gets in a blue one. Philip, he goes for one. He takes the red one. So we have this little chase between Gromit and Philip while they're on top of Toddy Hall, and one moment where Philip accidentally knocked Victor over and on a pole, and the Reverend and everybody else, beware the moon! Victor's butt cheeks. At least, sometimes a butt joke can work in kids' movies, but it's funny, So and again, Victor... he's still trying to go after the were-rabbit, of course. And as for Gromit and Philip, because at one point, Philip's red plane crashed, and it literally exploded, and we didn't see Philip after that. Maybe he got killed when it exploded, but no. He managed to get on the plane that Gromit's on and go for, a pole or something and just, choking him pretty much, literally. But then... the plane comes to a stop. It needs coins, and Gromit, trying to search for coins and such, quarters. But then Philip, he takes it upon himself, reaching into his little lady's purse or something. He's got a quarter and dime and such. Puts it in, inserts it, and thus, it resumes. But they make their way to a curve, I should say, And Gromit discovers an open hatch, and causing Philip to fall down and land on an bouncy house. And, Gromit proceeding on to stop Victor from killing Wallace, and when Victor has Wallace cornered, and he shoots the gun, and the gold carrot fires, it's almost about to hit Wallace, the were-rabbit. But Gromit, when he steps in, the plane takes the gold carrot, and the were-rabbit, Wallace is okay. Victor just pounding, just like a child. But Gromit, I should say, he was holding onto a piece of rope, and in order for the plane to still be in the air, and well, the were-rabbit, Wallace, was going for a high five with Gromit, and Gromit's, like, unintentionally let go of the rope, going for a high five, but yeah. Going down, Victor notices this too. Wallace, as the were-rabbit, sacrificing himself to save his best friend, Gromit. And they both go down, they hit the tent where the cheese is, and yeah, because, like, Wallace, as the were-rabbit, he took the blade, he took the propeller, and is, painful. And Victor, he's happy by this, that, yeah, the were-rabbit's been defeated, but Toddy, behind Victor, hits him with the giant carrot and consider yourself dumped. And Victor, knocked out, and, well, the angry mob, they're approaching the tent. Little do they know that technically the were-rabbit is down. Thankfully, the Lady Rabbit costume, the puppet and such, it's in the back of the anti-pesto van. It pops out. Gromit gets an idea, quickly, puts the costume on Victor, pushes him out of the tent. Yep. And now they're going after Victor in the Lady Rabbit costume. And even when Victor, he calls for Philip, Philip thinks it's the were-rabbit, biting the tail, but I think, yeah, he must have bitten Victor's Tucci or something. And, Victor screams and, here as the beast, roars and just, yeah. And thus they chase him. And that's the last we see of Victor, Philip, and the Reverend and everyone else that chases him in this movie, yeah. And after that, Lady Toddington, the last thing she says, and when, Victor runs away because, he's in the costume, Lady Rabbit, let's see how he likes it. And then we have a sad moment where the were-rabbit is no more. Wallace comes back. Those wavy, rings, from the mind manipulation omatic, they emerge again, and it seems like, yeah, as of now, it's finally wearing off, and he's no longer going to transform into the were-rabbit. But Wallace, he's still unconscious. Yeah, he doesn't wake up at first when he's back to himself. Gromit and Lady Toddington, even the bunnies, they emerge. They all get emotional. And how can they possibly bring Wallace back? Well, when Gromit notices Hutch eating some cheese, snapping his fingers, and he gets an idea, he takes a plate of cheese and moves the cheese around Wallace's nose. He sniffs it, he takes a bite of it. Wallace is officially back. Yeah. But also naked. And, very smart on Gromit to quickly cover him with a box. So, yeah. So all ends well, and Toddy gives the prized gold carrot to Gromit. He's the one that deserves it. For all the heroic stuff that happened and what she says to Gromit, well deserved, and Wallace is happy for him. And Toddy, feeling as though, well, she feels that, everything's going to be very quiet and alone and lonely in Toddington Hall. And because she's looking at the bunnies, and there's two bunnies that twitch each other's noses, a little cute little bunny couple. And that's when an idea emerges, and she makes a proposal to Wallace. And the epilogue that we get, well, Toddington Hall is now a home for all the bunnies in the back of Toddington Hall, the backyard and such, where we saw those herd of bunnies early in the film, and releasing them from the bun vac. Yeah, they're unleashed, and even Toddy tells Wallace that it's going to be very lonely without him being there. And Wallace tells Toddy that a part of him is going to be there. And thus, the last bunny that is popped out of the bun vac is Hutch. And he gets the last line, epic music that plays, slow motion. He flies into the air and says, "Cheese!" The end. Nice way to end off the movie right there. Without a doubt. Yeah. If I remember correctly, yeah, during the end credits, bunnies were floating. Yeah. And there's one more funny moment that happens right at the end of the movie. I guess a bunny hitting the credits, but yeah, anyways. Yeah, Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, is without a doubt a stop-motion movie masterpiece, without a doubt. From the story, the characters, our main characters, of course, Wallace and Gromit, the adventure that they experience and go through, new characters that step in from Lady Toddington, the main villain, Victor Cordemeyer, his dog Philip, the townspeople, West Wallaby Street, from the Reverend, the policeman, Mr. and Mrs. Mulch, Mr. Winfield, Mr. Growbag, and everyone else, the bunnies, and of course, when Wallace transforms into the Were-Rabbit himself. Great music and the score, great stop-motion animation into this with a little bit of CGI here and there for understandable reasons, for certain shots of animation. The pacing, the action, the effects, just everything that went down in Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Fantastic. And rightfully so, Curse of the Were-Rabbit winning for Best Animated Feature. They finally got that Oscar, for a movie that they did. They didn't get it for Chicken Run, but they for sure got it for Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Yeah. And I'm giving Curse of the Were-Rabbit, well, if it's not obvious, 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. And what about you guys? What did you think of Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit itself? Was this one of your first introductions to Wallace and Gromit, like me, as I said? Or did you know them before the movie? Like any of you that saw their first 3 short films, saw the cracking contraptions, anything Wallace and Gromit before Curse of the Were-Rabbit emerged. Is this one of your favorite pieces of Wallace and Gromit materials, Artman materials, one of your top favorite stop-motion films? What are some of your favorite moments, and with the characters, and everything that goes on in Curse of the Were-Rabbit? Overall, what do you think of Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, there's one more Oscar-winning film left for me to review. Stay tuned later tonight, because the next Best Animated Feature film that I'll be reviewing, it too is celebrating its anniversary, and let's just say, it's a Pixar film that had won for Best Animated Feature, where, well, we see the inside, the mind of a girl. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Again, stay tuned for that. Take care. Happy anniversary to Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and peace out. Cheese!